now, I mean, I feel like there's so many opportunities where you could at least work part-time online, and wouldn't even have to be yoga related. It could be, but just as long as you have some kind of online income stream that you could work part-time, then that would really supplement a travel teaching lifestyle really nicely. Then you could travel so many places and teach yoga in exchange for room and board, and then maybe work part-time on your online job and then also get to teach yoga. That would be, I feel like if I was starting today, that's what I would probably start to do.
Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Rica and I am your host. I hope you're having a great day as you're listening to this episode. If you are a returning listener to this podcast, I want to say thank you. It means a lot to me that you continue to come back and listen to my podcast. And if you're new, I am so excited that you are here. Welcome to the podcast. So Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast, I can't believe almost a year ago. I started the first Monday of January. Promised myself I'm going to release an episode every single Monday for 1 year. That was my commitment, to do this for 1 year and see how this podcast will look like in the future after 1 year. And that is still to be determined. But all that to say, I started this podcast because I wanted to share other yoga teachers' journey and stories of becoming a full-time yoga teacher. Not to try to convince anyone listening to become a full-time yoga teacher, because I don't think being a full-time yoga teacher is for everyone. It's not an easy path, and it's not the ideal path for some. And it is the path and the most fulfilling path for some. And I think having that variety is beautiful. Some people want to be part-time teacher, so you don't have to rely having roof over your head by teaching yoga classes. And some people want to just teach yoga as their living. So anyway, all this to say that it's not for everyone. I'm not trying to promote that. And I want to highlight different teachers' journey and stories on this podcast of how they became a full-time yoga teacher and what are some challenges and success stories. I do interview some teachers who used to be full-time teacher or who is a part-time teacher. So I have a variety of teachers that I do interview, but most of the teachers I interview tend to be a full-time yoga teacher because I am a full-time yoga teacher. And when I first became a yoga teacher, I wanted to learn how other full-time yoga teachers are doing it. How are they making it work? Is it possible? All of these questions were floating around my head when I was a new teacher. And I wish I had podcasts like this to listen to. So that's part of the reason why I am providing this podcast, to share the journey and experiences of other amazing teachers who's been doing this for a really, really long time. All that to say, I hope you had a good week, okay week. My week was pretty rough this past week due to the election that happened in the United States. And it really tested me how to be a yoga teacher, how to show up as a yoga teacher when I myself is going through a difficult time. So that might be a cool episode to record someday, a solo episode for me to record, because as yoga teachers, we have our life challenges that shows up, or this communal, societal challenges that we're going through, and how do we show up for others as a yoga teachers when you yourself is having a hard time even showing up for yourself. So I think that's such an interesting topic to maybe touch on. I don't really have the answer, but I could share some of my experiences, and I think that's an interesting topic to talk about, because as a yoga teachers, many yoga teachers are seen as a community leader, and people come to yoga to get inspired or to get away from their own problems or challenges, or to feel better from the stress of the outside world? And how can yoga teachers show up when they themselves are also stressed out or going through it or having a difficult time even showing up for themselves? Anyway, that is something I've been thinking a lot in the past week or so, maybe for a possible future episode. I don't really have an announcement to make this week, except for I am still teaching a 200-hour teacher training next year from February until May in Laguna Niguel, Orange County in California. It is in-person 200-hour teacher training. It is every other weekend format, and I am teaching Smart Flow 200-hour teacher training. I have been part of many teacher training. I have taught quite a few teacher trainings, and I cannot say that I stand 100% behind every single teacher trainings that I have been part of. But with Smart Flow 200-hour teacher training, I can say from bottom of my heart, I am 100% or maybe even like 200% confident in the quality of the teacher trainings that will be offered in this 200-hour. So that's hard for me to say, because I get asked a lot, what teacher training do I recommend? What teachers do I recommend? And when I answer those questions, I don't take it lightly. I really want to recommend and offer resources that I think I truly 100% believe in. So this 200-hour teacher training that's starting in February, Smart Flow 200-hour teacher training that I will be co-leading, I can say 100% that I believe in. And it is one of the highest quality 200-hour teacher trainings out there, because there are a lot of not so good one out there. So if you or anyone you know is looking for a 200-hour teacher training that is high quality education, that you get to really learn about yoga and heart of yoga, that is alignment based and anatomically backed, I would highly recommend a teacher training that I'm going to be teaching next year. So feel free to recommend this teacher training to anybody in the area. I'll be teaching in Orange County, February to May. The link will be on the show notes. I am sharing with you the conversation I had with Erica. And I think this interview is so special because Erica is a founder of Yoga Trade. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I love Yoga Trade. I have interviewed many teachers who've gotten a job all over the world using Yoga Trade website. I have been a member of Yoga Trade for I don't know how many years. I think it's such a great website that make it accessible and possible for yoga teachers to travel and work, or yoga teachers to want to teach in another country, or who just want to travel and teach yoga, which sounds like such a beautiful combination to me for somebody who loves to travel. I have done quite a bit of traveling and backpacking when I was younger, in my 20s. I still travel, but when I did those long-term backpacking trips, I wish I was a yoga teacher, because I could have traveled for a lot longer working or volunteering as a yoga teacher as I traveled with the amount of money I had. Because Yoga Trade, you can find a yoga teaching job in beautiful part of the world that you can either get paid to teach, or you get free room and board in beautiful retreat center or guest houses or hostels as you teach 1 or 2 classes a day. So anyway, it's a wonderful website to find a paid position as a yoga teacher or a wellness practitioners around the world, or volunteer work trade positions around the world. So I love this website. I always recommend this website to yoga teachers. And what a blessing that I get to have a conversation with Erica, who is the founder of Yoga Trade. When I reached out to Erica to see if she would like to be interviewed for my podcast, she was a little bit hesitant because she said she is not a full-time yoga teacher. And I said, it doesn't matter. You have such a great journey to share to the world, to the listeners. And just you starting this website, Yoga Trade, has made a huge impact on yoga teachers, full-time or part-time, across the world. And I just really wanted to speak to her and share her stories. So today, I am thrilled to welcome Erica, a true mindful adventurer, connection catalyst, and founder of Yoga Trade. Growing up in the Sierra Nevada foothills, Erica's life has always been grounded in nature, a love she now shares with others through unique, nature-inspired yoga experiences. With homes in both Lake Tahoe and Costa Rica, Erica curates retreats, designs wellness programs, and is passionate about regenerative living, yoga, and building meaningful connections. Her journey led her to create Yoga Trade in 2012, a platform connecting the global wellness community with incredible opportunities around the world. Join us as we dive into Erica's inspiring path of adventure, mindfulness, and building community that uplifts and empowers. I hope you enjoy this conversation I had with Erica, and I will speak to you on the other side. Welcome, Erica, for coming to join me on the Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm very excited to chat with you because you are the founder of Yoga Trade, and the listeners would know this, but I can't even count how many times we talked about Yoga Trade or Yoga Trade came up in the conversation during the interviews, and how many people I interviewed have worked as a yoga teacher using Yoga Trade website. So I'm just so excited that I get to have a conversation with somebody who started that website. So thank you, Erica, for being here. And tell the listener, where are you joining us from today?
Hi, really happy to be here. Grateful that you asked me to be on today. And today I am in South Lake Tahoe, which has been my primary residence for many years. And it's a real cozy day. It's actually raining today. We haven't really got much rain yet this season. And so, yeah, I'm just sitting here in my little house, cozied up by the fire with my cup of tea. And yeah, I'm really excited. I love to talk to people that have participated in Yoga Trade too. And I know we have some mutual friends and mutual places around the world that we've probably visited. So I am super excited.
Yes, me too. And so is Lake Tahoe, is that where you're from?
Kind of, but not really technically. I grew up in the Sierra Nevada mountain foothills. So I grew up in a small town, Nevada City, which is down the western slope from Tahoe. And that's where I grew up. My mom also grew up there, and my mom still lives there. And but when I was an adult, I moved to Tahoe, which is a little bit more alpine, higher elevation. Just felt a little bit more like wide open space for me. So it's been I've lived a lot of places and traveled a lot, but for my adult life, Lake Tahoe has been my primary residence.
I've only visited Lake Tahoe, I think once in my life, and I didn't even get to spend good quality time there, but I always hear how amazing it is. And it's not too far from here, so I should definitely make time to visit Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, it is an amazing place, nature lovers paradise. It's really beautiful. And as someone who's traveled a lot, I have yet to find any place that I'd rather call home.
That's actually really important to be able to come home from your travels and, be really happy to come home to, because I often come home from traveling somewhere and I don't want to be in LA. I feel like that. Although there's part of LA I do love, but that's so nice to hear that you come home and you are happy to come home to Lake Tahoe.
Yeah. I mean, as a traveler, you always get I do love to travel, and lots of times when I travel and come back, there is always can be that challenging adjustment for sure, as life on the road can be really fun as well. But yeah, Tahoe is just a really, really amazing place. So grateful to be able to spend so much time here.
Yeah. And I know that you said you grew up pretty active playing sports. And can you tell us what kind of activity you enjoyed doing growing up, or what kind of sports or movement that you practiced or you enjoyed as you were growing up?
Oh, yeah. Well, when I think to childhood, yeah, I always identified early on as just kind of with moving my body and being in my body. I loved being outside in nature and just doing anything, just kind of running around, playing as a child. In middle school, I then I played volleyball. And in high school, I also played volleyball and ran track and cross country and started to ski. And it wasn't until later, felt like that kind of gave me a great foundation as far as, moving physically in my body. But it wasn't really until right after high school when I kind of delved more into kind of the outdoor wilderness sports that I really got into, and also like more mindful movements such as yoga. That kind of happened more in the college years and post-college.
I love to hear that. And how did you first get introduced to yoga?
Well, let's see. I know I get that question a lot in interviews. And when I think about it, actually growing up in Nevada City where I grew up, I don't know if you've ever visited there, but there is quite a lot of kind of yoga, mindful stuff going on. And so I feel like unconsciously it was always in the periphery around me, a lot of just, in the stores of Nevada City and the music that was playing in restaurants. And just, I personally did not go to yoga and my family wasn't into yoga, but I feel like I was kind of subliminal. It was kind of surrounded me in a lot of subliminal ways. And I guess, let's see, the first yoga class that I remember going to, I feel like maybe in high school, I think I went to the gym. Like this was in the 90s. In Nevada City, I went to my local gym and I think it wasn't yoga, but I think it was like a 5 rhythms dance class. And I think that was maybe one of my first intros to just kind of that mindful movement lifestyle and those kind of classes. And then in the 90s in college, I think also same, I went to the gym. It was just kind of like a normal gym. And I think I took a few classes there. But it wasn't really my thing. I didn't really get hooked at that point, I was interested and curious, but I don't think it was until much later. I started to just dabble. And then I really got into snowboarding in college and post-college. Snowboarding was my main passion for several years. And I think that is when I started to actually go to classes because there was a lot of yoga classes offered to complement snowboarding. But still, I don't think I was really like devoted to yoga at that point. I just was like noticing that it was something that could complement my other sports and passions that I was into. And yeah, I just continued to dabble for several years, like through my 20s. And then it wasn't until more my mid 20s when I met my teacher, Amy Outman, in Half Moon Bay, that was the first teacher that I recall that really like sparked the fire within to really like devote myself to yoga. So I think yoga started as a way to complement my other sports and just the way I was living. And then, yeah, organically and naturally, I feel like it was the teacher that kind of just ignited that fire within.
And did you find that yoga helped with snowboarding when you're practicing alongside snowboarding?
Oh yeah, I feel like when I was younger, I was definitely much more just like fast-paced athlete, and I didn't really it was different, like I don't think that there was as much wellness and yoga and mindfulness as there is now. Like growing up in the 90s, like in school and in high school, it wasn't really, I think there's a lot more of it just mainstream now. Yes, it was definitely shifted a lot of my awareness, helped me to just like find more balance and realize that slowing down a bit is okay. Because definitely when I was younger, I was more like go, 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 go. Definitely like a fiery, and loved all the like fast sports like running and snowboarding and all the things that were, was kind of going 100% full speed ahead. Yeah. So I think yoga obviously was a great complement to all of those things and helped me slow down a bit.
Yeah.
And be mindful with my movements.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I wish I would have learned it a little bit earlier than I did, been introduced to these practices earlier.
Uh-huh.
It's been very helpful.
And when you found your teacher that got you more interested in yoga or that got you maybe deeper into yoga, what kind of yoga practice was she teaching? What style?
Well, she was teaching like a blend. I think it was just a hatha class. I think it was a little bit tantra infused. I believe her main teachers, one of her main teachers was Rod Stryker, I believe. And she had a lot of influences and a lot of teachers as well as I do too. But it was very philosophical. I feel like it was an asana class, but it was very slow and it was a little bit challenging, but like in a very, very very foundational, very slow, very intentional. It was always like based on themes, philosophies of, yoga roots. I was the youngest in the class. I think I was in my mid-20s, and most of the people in the class were like in their 60s. Yeah, I don't know. I think I just really loved the philosophy side of it and the spiritual side of it, the meditation. And I just really got drawn in. She was just a really amazing teacher for me. And also, another thing was that it was on the coast of California. It was in Half Moon Bay. I was living there for a year. And at the same time, I was also learning to surf. And I think there was a lot of parallels there. So it was kind of like this spiritual awakening, learning to be in the ocean and flow with the sea and, living in this new environment. And then also this amazing, very, very grounded teacher. So it was a lot of different things that all came together.
That sounds lovely hearing what you said about surfing and yoga, the similarities between the two. And I don't surf myself. I've tried a few times, but my partner is very, very much into surfing. And yeah, whenever I hear people talk about surfing, people who loves and enjoy surfing, it sounds so magical.
Yeah, it is. It is a very magical, and I feel like I guess it is a sport, but I feel like for me, it's one of the most spiritual, sports out there for me.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really helped connect with spirit for me.
Oh, wow. That's very beautiful. Thank you. I'm gonna think on that for a little bit. But I want to ask what brought you to do your first 200-hour teacher training and where was that and what sparked your interest to become a yoga teacher?
Let's see. So I had been studying and practicing yoga with Amy Outman for, consistently for probably over a year. And I just felt like I wanted to go deeper with yoga. Similar to, I feel like the story of so many people that I talk to, I had no intention actually of becoming a yoga teacher. I just wanted to deepen my practice for yoga and I wanted to learn more yoga. And I actually wanted to go on a yoga retreat. And my grandmother passed away in 2009, my mom's mom, who was like my most inspirational family member. And she left all the grandkids a few $1,000s. So at that point, it was like, ooh, I'm rich. I had this a few $1,000s that was a lot of money to me at that time. And I really wanted to go on some kind of special pilgrimage or trip to honor and think about my grandmother. And I wanted to do a yoga retreat. So I started kind of just looking around for yoga retreats. And at that point, I don't know. I feel like I was actually like looking more in magazines, like more than online. Back at that point, I think I was like thumbing through yoga magazines, like looking at yoga retreats in the back. And I just found Yandara, I think there, and it's this Yandara Yoga Institute in Baja, and they had yoga teacher trainings. And it was I don't know, for about the same price of a yoga retreat, I could go for like a month-long yoga teacher training immersion that sounded so beautiful. And yeah, just intuitively, I was really drawn to it. And so that is when I went to my first 200-hour yoga teacher training that ended up being a really positive and transformational experience.
Wow. So your 200 teacher training was almost like an intensive 1 month long training in Baja, Mexico?
Yep. It was a 30-day. I think they used to, at that period, most 200 hours were 30 days. Mm-hmm. And so it was 30 days in Baja near Todos Santos at Yandara. And it was a beautiful team of teachers. So there was several, which I really loved about it was there was several teachers. At that point, I didn't have my yoga teacher, didn't teach yoga teacher trainings. Plus, I was kind of looking to travel and go somewhere. And I don't know, I just kind of randomly found it and I just felt good about it and went, and it ended up being a great experience.
And was that training, was it like a shared living space with everyone? I remember Sarah was telling me her training she did in Baja, Mexico, where she camped on the beach for the 30 days she was there. It was yours similar?
It was. So
Oh.
we had tents, but we all had our own tent. It was I think that they have changed a little bit since then, but in 2009 they actually had it was just a basic tent, but it felt luxury because it was this basic tent, and then inside the tent there was a real bed with a super cozy mattress and like cozy blankets, Mexican blankets. And then there was like a little dresser. There was electricity. There was like a little light. And I think like even a plug you could plug stuff into. And then we did share bathrooms. So we had like shared bathrooms with solar showers. So you were like taking luxurious outdoor showers, heated water from the sun. And then, yeah, there was several yoga spaces. It was right on the beach in the desert. So we have that beautiful blend of the ocean and the desert. Yeah, we had several yoga spaces, several different great, amazing teachers. I had Allison Eaton, Craig Perkins, Mercy Ananda, Amber Young. There's a whole team of teachers there that are still teaching to this day. So it's amazing. And the food was really great. There was like a group of musicians that would play, and we would do like kirtan every night. It was a great, great experience that changed a lot of things. It was the first time that I really changed my eating to go full. I went full vegetarian for a while, and I had never really done that before. So there was a lot of big shifts for me during that time.
Sounds like a wonderful training. I love the idea of camping and training. I think that sounds really nice. And you're like right by the water and in nature. And it sounded like it was a really cozy, comfortable camping situation.
Yeah, it was I mean, to me, it was luxury camping, and the weather was great. I went in March, and the weather was perfect, I feel, for yoga teacher training because it was, pleasant during the day, a lot of sunshine. I don't really remember the temperatures, but probably in the 70s during the day. And then at night, it would get a little chilly. It was great. And I just think that blend of being immersed in nature and living really simply, but beautifully, and then having like a team of teachers. And it was also generational, right? There were some parents and their children were teaching. And yeah, I just think that multi-generational, multi-lineages, people from different kind of lineages were teaching. Yeah, still to this day, I recommend Yandara as a great place to go. And I'm actually going back there next month. I haven't been back there in almost 10 years. So I have been there several times, but I have not visited in maybe 9 years. And I'm going to go in November, and I'm super excited.
That sounds amazing. And when you finished your teacher training, and did you go back to Lake Tahoe and did you start teaching right away?
I did not start teaching right away. So first I went back to Half Moon Bay because that's where I was living for that year. And I think like several months after that, I did move back to Lake Tahoe. And I didn't teach for almost a year after my first 200 hour. But what it did do was it really catapulted me into a deep dive into self-study. I was just so into self-study after that training. I was reading like so many yoga books. I was doing a really like dedicated personal practice every day. I was going to a lot of like day workshops or little like mini weekend workshops, and really I feel like after that first yoga teacher training, it was almost a full year of really just diving into a devoted personal practice and continuing education and then I felt like the call to start teaching after that.
I love that. I'm always a huge advocate for continuing education. For me, it keeps my teaching more fresh, or like it doesn't feel so stagnated when I'm continuing to learn myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like just learning from other amazing teachers out there who's been teaching for way longer than I have. just like inspire me so much to kind of spice up my teaching as well. So I love that you kind of dedicated yourself to self-study for the first year. And how was it like when you started teaching a year in?
Well, to be honest, I felt really called to teach, but I was a little bit nervous of, I think mostly just putting, speaking in front of groups. I had a little bit of learning curve to get over that. So I started pretty small, and I started two ways. My first place, I started teaching at a ski resort at Kirkwood. I just offered some community classes in the mornings before the ski lifts opened. And that was quite a great way to just kind of step into the yoga world. And then I also started here in Tahoe that next summer. I started community offerings outdoors, which just felt really natural and organic for me. Yeah, that's how I started.
And I know you traveled quite a bit from reading your bio. When did traveling come into your picture? Were you already traveling a lot growing up and started traveling even more after that, yoga or non-yoga related, or did it happen later in life?
Well, growing up with my mom, I grew up with a single mom, and we didn't really travel at all. We were stayed right in Nevada City. Sometimes we would come to Tahoe in the summer, and we were not travelers, I would say, as a family growing up. But then post college, I was very enthusiastic about travel and wanted to travel. But I was a bit limited financially, but I did, I made it a priority. And I started to travel in the off seasons because I lived a very seasonal life, kind of had a summer job and a winter job in the mountains. And then in the spring or the fall, I would try to travel, but it would always be kind of like a budget backpackery kind of trip. Also, was to see if I could volunteer, kind of like the volunteer lifestyle traveler, backpacker. And then once I became a yoga teacher, that's where I kind of put it together and was like, oh, wow, maybe I could teach yoga as a way to fuel my travel. Reach out and see if there's places that may want a yoga teacher for a month. And then I could kind of, have a place to live and a place to land and also gain experience and connections and also feel like I have more purpose as a learning new cultures and experiencing new places. So yeah, shortly thereafter, probably only a year after into my teaching here in Tahoe, then I began to seek out places abroad where I could travel and teach.
And with you said you were working seasonal jobs, and were you working with tourism, teaching, snowboarding? What kind of seasonal jobs did you have?
Yeah, so my my work has been all over the place, I feel like, since I started working very young, like in middle school and high school, and yeah, mostly in restaurants, I would say, tourism, hospitality, and all through college I worked in restaurants. And I actually got a degree in business, graduated in 2001 with a bachelor's in business. And a lot of people that I went to school with, in that time it was the .com era, went on to work for Yahoo and Oracle and all these hot tech companies. And I just did not have the desire to do that at all. I just could, I couldn't make a priority that kind of tech career or money or at that point. So I really just wanted to follow my passions, which were nature, mostly, and travel and the mountains and the ocean. And so, yeah, and at that point, snowboarding. So yeah, I really just started to work a lot of seasonal tourism jobs. So in Tahoe, I would work and at other ski towns as well, hospitality tourism jobs. I did teach snowboarding as a job. I also worked in restaurants, in bars, at hotels. And then in the summer, it was kind of, working at summer resorts. I also filled in and did substitute school teaching. I've worked so many jobs. I've, did part-time marketing jobs. But yeah, I would say for the most part, it was tourism, hospitality related.
I see. Thank you for sharing that. I also worked for a tour company for some time. I don't know if you know Backroads.
I have heard of it.
Yeah, so I was their bike trip leader for a few seasons, and I know the feeling of working a seasonal job.
Yeah, it was actually, pretty fun. And I feel like it's what it was definitely like a catalyst for yoga trade.
Yeah, I think it's quite amazing to just, work hard for some, a few months or half of the year. And then also, a lot of people who work seasonal job, they can be like, okay, now I have time to go off traveling, or now I have time to go take this teacher training that I've been wanting to take. So it's kind of nice to like, have set month that you're working, and then you can say like, okay, now I'm going to travel for 3 months or 4 months. So definitely, I really enjoyed that time of my life. And I want to know, when you said you started to have idea of like, oh, maybe I can travel and teach yoga. About what year was that? And was that not as common as it is now when you started this idea? Did you see other traveling yoga teachers out there when you're traveling?
Well, let's see. I think it was about 2010, maybe, when I first started kind of seeking that out. And I definitely don't think it was as popular slash mainstream as it is now. I mean, there were definitely people doing it, but so many things were different, right? I think there weren't as many people doing yoga as practicing yoga. There weren't as many yoga retreat centers. There also the whole tech thing. There was like not everyone. I didn't have a smartphone yet. There wasn't like all the Instagram and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think it was definitely a different time. And I just kind of started seeking out places that I personally was interested in traveling to. And then I would send emails and see if places wanted a yoga teacher. And that's how it started for me. And I kind of did that as much as possible, I think, between the years of, well, especially 2010 to 2013, I was really doing that. And I went to Morocco, and then I went to Costa Rica and Panama and Fiji and Indonesia. And yeah, I just really met some incredible people and gained a lot of experience and some wisdom and learned from different cultures. And I really felt like it helped me grow as a yoga teacher, and then also helped kind of just let that idea of yoga trade flow through as well.
Yeah, that's so amazing. All the amazing places you visited just by reaching out to places that you want to go to see if they would want a yoga teacher. What was their responses like when you were reaching out to places? Was most places very responsive and excited, or if they didn't already have existing yoga program, were they more hesitant?
Well, I think that I probably sent out hundreds of emails and I don't even remember all the places probably that I reached out to. And I think, yeah, I didn't get a response from a lot of places. And I just focused on the places that I did get a response from and that I was excited about going to. And then I kind of focused there. Yeah, most of the places that I went were in the newer stages of developing a yoga program. Also, a lot of the places I went were more surf focused. So they had a focus on surfing, and then they were kind of like bringing yoga into their mix.
I love that. And how long were you typically staying in a spot while teaching yoga?
Most places I would stay for a month, and then there was a few places that I stayed for several months.
And looking back during this time, do you have few of your favorite places that you have great memories from?
Yeah, I do. I really liked, I mean, so many places, but Encanta La Vida was one place that I really loved in Costa Rica. And I did stay there for a full season, I think like maybe 5 months. And I also had other responsibilities there. So I did work a few hours a day, helped kind of in the office or restaurant for a couple hours, but then I was the only and main resident yoga teacher. And they gave me full creative freedom to create whatever yoga program that I wanted. And so I had public classes every day, I could do private classes. And then also, maybe every once or twice a month, we would have a yoga retreat come there. And so at that point, there would be other teachers that were more experienced than me, usually there leading retreats. And I got to learn from them and kind of witness all these different yoga retreats coming through. and notice kind of, oh, this is how you run a yoga retreat, and see how all the different teachers did it so differently. And that was really beautiful. And also we were right on the ocean, and there was opportunities to surf, and we were really immersed in tropical jungle nature. And yeah, that was a standout for sure. And I felt like I met a lot of great connections, a lot of other yoga teachers that were doing retreats, and just a lot of the guests that came through there. Yeah, that was probably one of the standouts during that time frame.
Sounds amazing. And tell us how the idea of yoga trade came about and how did you go about starting that? It sounds like such a big project.
Yeah, so it wasn't really meant to be a business. I think, after I had been living this travel, teaching yoga lifestyle, a lot of friends or peers or other yoga teachers started to just ask how I was doing it. They wanted to do it too. And, I didn't really know how to answer at that point. I just was like, oh, you just do it. So I noticed that there was like a lot of people interested in living that same kind of path. And I also was feeling so filled up myself. Like I was just daily like gratitude journaling like crazy, just like, wow, I'm living my dream life. I was just on kind of riding this high of, learning to surf, traveling, teaching yoga, going so many new places. And I was also like right around 30 years old, I think. So I don't know. I feel like it was like a very magical time. I was actually on a plane to Bali, and I remember just journaling, but I kind of was also like falling asleep a little bit. And I was writing my journal and doodling. And yeah, I don't know. I just kind of felt like this zap of lightning hit. And I was like, yeah, I should start some kind of like yoga jobs network or yoga travel network. And I just started doodling around. And it just kind of felt like, oh yeah, this is happening. It's kind of just flowing through me. And when I got to Bali, I met some of my good friends, Pat and Christy, who are now married, and they're friends from Costa Rica. And I told them about it. And yeah, our eyes just lit up, and we just knew right there, right then, we were going to create this yoga network. But we still at that point were not thinking about it as a business. We were just thinking of it as a creative project. And so we were kicking around names like, okay, Yoga Jobs Worldwide or Yoga Travel Network, or yeah. And then I think it was actually Christy that kind of came up with the just name the yoga trade. And it just hit. So yeah, we started just a very basic, I think we started two things at the same time. I think we started a Facebook page, and then we started a very simple website that was Craigslist style, just kind of like a very simple website page. And we did that for about a year or so, and it just kind of organically took off, I think, just from our personal networks that we knew. I was traveling a lot and really enthusiastic and talking about it to everyone that I met, and like visiting a lot of different retreat centers. And then Pat and Christy, they were running the yoga farm in Costa Rica, and they were hosting a lot of volunteers. And I don't know, I think between us, we just it just organically started to take off. And then about a year or two into it was when we realized that we were spending a lot of time on it, and that we needed to change the model a little bit and change it into a business.
Wow, sounds amazing. And by the time when you realized or you started having these ideas of yoga trade, were there other website like Workaway and Woofing? There's few other website that travelers use to find volunteer work. Those website, was it already existed by then?
Oh yeah. Especially, I mean, woofing I know has been around for a long time, since maybe the 70s, but they used to just go off of like catalogs or books, and Workaway was definitely established as well. And yeah, those were kind of a little bit, those were role models for us too. And I think that we just saw like the niche of like, oh yeah, we wanted to kind of do what woofing or Workaway was doing at that point, but have it more yoga and wellness niche. But yeah, there were definitely inspirations for sure for us. But then at that point in time, to our knowledge, we didn't know any other like yoga specific thing that was doing what we wanted to do.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I do remember it was funny because in 2012, we almost didn't do it because we thought that yoga had already topped out, or I guess we were like, oh, yoga, it's like so trending. And I don't know, like we thought that we were too late to start it in 2012. And so we almost didn't do it. And then, yeah, wow, look how much yoga has grown since 2012.
Yeah,
So,
I'm so glad you didn't stop there because
yes.
it, it's such a great idea. I feel like it's such an amazing idea that you did that. And my other question is, did you have somebody else who were more in charge of the tech side, or were you doing a lot of the tech side? I just imagine I'm not very tech smart, and I just imagine there must be a lot that goes in behind the scene in terms of technology.
Well, at the beginning, so Pat and I, so it's basically my business partner, Pat and I, we decided, okay, we're kind of gonna create this yoga trade. And I did have a background in business, so I did have a background. It kind of came full circle. Interestingly enough, I went to college for business, but then kind of had no interest in going into a career in business, then lived this life of passion. And then it kind of came back around to starting a business. So I did have a pretty decent foundation as far as just kind of foundational business principles and marketing and operations and things like that. Also pretty solid in writing or just simple graphic design and things like that. And also kind of like a type A personality. So I can kind of, I feel like I kind of can keep things in order and stuff like that. And then Pat actually did go to school. He had some school in web design, which was also many years prior to us starting Yoga Trade. And he then didn't really work in web design too much. But he was like, I think I can figure this out. And when we first started the site, it was pretty simple. It was like our tech and web design was not too complicated at the beginning. And so those were kind of our main roles. Like Pat was kind of like director of like the back end, and I was like more director of the front end of the site. And, we also kind of cross and share responsibilities, and we work really well together. And then over the years, of course, when we grew and we have more members on the site, things became more complicated, and also technology just evolves and progresses, that now we have a tech team that helps us. So yeah, it's definitely been a journey for the technology, and it still continues to be a journey.
Yeah, I bet. Maybe tell us the journey of making this into a business and how that challenges you had faced since of making this into a business, and also like a success, and how is it going?
Yeah, so I think our very first, I don't remember all the timelines, but I know we had Yoga Trade was just like a free, community-based passion project for at least a year or so. And then we decided we needed to start getting some kind of energy exchange. And I remember the very first, just we wanted to keep it simple and like to the point. We also were looking to things like such as woofing and work away. And we saw that the main thing that they did was just charge an annual membership. And that seemed very simple and honest and real. And so the first thing we did was we charged an annual membership, and we just charged, I remember it was $12 a year. That was our first pricing that we did. And that's how we started. We're just like, okay, let's just charge $12 a year. People join Yoga Trade. That's how it started. And to be honest, most of our stuff has been pretty intuitive. We haven't used a lot of business strategy and data and all that. It's kind of just, we go a lot off of feel and what feels right. And then over the years, we started, changing the price of the annual membership and then adding several different membership options. But still to this day, we currently have two membership tiers, and they're both just annual memberships. And that is currently, that's still the only way that we monetize Yoga Trade. So we kind of just keep it pretty simple. And we were on a very, our momentum was growing rapidly. I could say from the years like 2014 to 2019, we had a pretty great momentum as far as like our membership growth. And then the pandemic kind of slowed it down a bit. But yeah, and we're still just kind of going. We're still just going. And still, yeah, it's a learning more every day. We always have so many ideas and just trying to deflect the ideas that aren't priorities and then prioritizing ideas. But yeah, we are still growing and we're still flowing and evolving. So excited to see what is going to come next.
And I guess I would imagine pandemic may have slowed down in the beginning, but I feel like there's been a huge rise of people traveling more now that we're maybe more, we're out of the pandemic. But I think pandemic maybe it brought the possibility to so many people that, oh, I could travel and work, or I could work remotely from another countries, or I could teach yoga here and still do my online job, so I wonder, have you seen a rise since the pandemic?
A little bit. I would say as far as our business goes, I feel like we were really peaking right before the pandemic, and we may not have I don't know the right words, but I think that we knew right when the pandemic hit that, wow, okay, the whole shift to online classes and courses just exploded. And both my business partner and we didn't really personally feel called to go on that route, like to create video content. And still we are starting to dabble with that, but that hasn't been our zone of genius. So I think we fell a little to the wayside during the pandemic because so many people were offering all this incredible video content, and we just weren't able to put it out there, I guess, at that time. But then, once people started traveling again in 2021, 2022, we were very resilient through the pandemic. And we did offer we had like a deep ecology of wellness, like live online continuing education during the pandemic. And we did do a little bit. But we did kind of see the opportunity that could arise, but we just didn't really go for it, I guess. But yeah, then when people started to travel again, Yoga Trade did kind of start to bounce back and people started to travel. But also technology, I feel like there's just so much more out there now, which is great because I do believe there's room for everyone. But I think there's just so much more yoga and wellness. It's just exploded. And then also technology has exploded. Yeah, the business is still doing well, but I think we're just we feel sometimes a little bit maybe behind in the technology and the progression of the evolution of all of that. But we also aren't trying to just push it and, just like yoga, we're trying to kind of just let things come naturally and having faith that things will just happen in the right time. So yeah, but overall, we're still doing quite well, the business. And yeah, maybe we're just in a little bit of a winter, but spring is coming soon.
Yeah. And I guess how lucrative is the running of Yoga Trade business? Because I know you have different jobs that you still do, or I don't know, but how is it something that is kind of like a one streams of income, but you still need other streams, or is it pretty a stable job for you?
Well, for the past, maybe starting around 2017, 2018. So I guess that's been about 7 years or so. It has been like a decent salary, like for myself and my business partner. By no means are we like crushing it, making millions. And it just depends. We both live really simply. Pat and his wife live most of their days in Costa Rica. And then they also go back to where they grew up, Florida, for a couple months. And then myself, I do usually go to Costa Rica for a few months a year and then spend more of my time in Lake Tahoe. So, right, it depends on the cost of living. So I have chosen to live somewhere that's quite expensive or has, but I do live very simply and humbly and within my means. But I do work other part-time jobs to supplement. And, and Pat, more, I think he does other things too. So we both do have like other sources of income. But I feel like the income from Yoga Trade has afforded us a really rich life and experience and freedom and creativity, and has given us like a really great foundation for like the lifestyles that we want to live. Yeah. So it's just kind of choosing, like I could definitely go move to somewhere in Eastern Europe and just live on my yoga trade income, but I want to live by family and where I grew up, and the yoga trade income doesn't quite afford me to live exactly how I want in this area. But then I kind of also like to work in person with real people, part-time and other jobs here too.
Thank you for sharing that. And I love the genuine, like, honesty of that, because I think when I started this podcast, it was one of my goal or intention was that, being, whether you call yourself full-time or part-time yoga teacher, I think a lot of people have this idea of what full-time yoga teacher looks like, and how much money we earn. And, everyone's different. Some people do earn quite a bit teaching yoga, but a lot of us do have to supplement our income with other things, or we have to have multiple streams of income to live and survive. So I think my whole intention of the podcast is to really truly share the honesty of what it's like to be a yoga teacher or who works in wellness or in the yoga world. And we do it because we love it, but all these creative ways that we find, and we create our own path to kind of make it work. So I always appreciate and also enjoy hearing how other people do this for a living, and different ways and different streams of income they do have to make it work. And I want to know, are you still traveling and teaching yoga?
Yeah, so I still have continued to teach yoga the entire time, but definitely more on a part-time. I'm not a full-time yoga teacher. I would say I have been a part-time yoga teacher ever since I started teaching yoga. And yeah, I teach yoga because I love it. I didn't ever I never went the route of trying to just live off the income that I make teaching yoga. I don't know. I just didn't ever, that never called me. To me, I feel like every time I teach a class or some kind of workshop or offering or retreat, I really put my whole heart and soul into it, and spend a lot of time in just the planning, and it's really like an offering from the heart and the soul. And to me, yeah, I like to do that without the pressure of also having that be my main source of income. That just feels more natural for me. So I chose to create other ways to make income. And that way I can really, when I do teach a yoga class or a workshop or a retreat offering, it takes the pressure off me for just oh, okay, this is an explosion from my heart. And I really also really want to be of service and give. And it doesn't necessarily, I get so much in return just from doing that I don't need the pressure of the, of the energy of the money exchange so much. And I think it's great that other people do it different ways. That's just what's worked for me personally. And yeah, so I still teach in Tahoe. I do a lot of outdoor offerings in the summertime. And then in Costa Rica, it's kind of, it's different every year. But the last few years, I do teach some yoga for some surf retreats that are happening. Surf retreat companies it's not my business, but I teach the yoga for them. And then I always usually teach 1 to 2 retreats a year personally that I personally design and curate. As of lately, the last few years, I do an annual water-inspired retreat in Costa Rica in February called Gracias Agua. And I also lead the monthly Yoga Trade Council meetings, which is not really, it's definitely not an asana class, but we do a meditation, and it's more of a yoga community council class. So yeah, I do teach part-time still.
I love that you have such a diverse, you live part-time in Lake Tahoe, and then you also make sure to visit and stay in Costa Rica for several months each year. And you kind of have this nice rhythm to your teachings and places and traveling that you get to do, and even running your own retreats every year. So what are some places that you run your own retreats in? And I think you said you run twice a year. So how has it been to, organize and run your retreats every year?
Well, the only place that I've actually hosted and designed my own retreats and offerings has been Costa Rica. And I haven't done that in any other country. And to me, it feels, I've also done like smaller things in Lake Tahoe, but mostly the retreats have been Costa Rica. And because it feels like a second home, I know a lot of retreat leaders and a lot of people are able to host and lead and teach retreats in places that they've never been to before. And they just show up with the people and they kind of experience the new place as they lead the retreat. But I don't know. Once again, that doesn't really work for me too well. Like I feel like I love to share the place. Like I'm really, really into spirit of place. And Costa Rica is, like has been a second home to me. And I feel like I know it really well. And I'm really in touch with the natural rhythms and the ecosystems, the tides and the ocean and the plants and the people in the community there. And I really like to share it from like a place of like, oh, this is a place I love and know, and I want you to really get to know this place too. And yeah, when I first started doing the retreats, it actually naturally seemed quite easy. But then, there wasn't as many retreats out there back then. It has, to be honest, I mean, yeah, it's just because it's a transparent and honest podcast. I love what you do here. The last couple of years, it kind of ebbs and flows, but it does seem a little bit more challenging to fill the retreats compared to how it used to be. And I think that's just because there's so many more things out there and so many more beautiful things. Also, I think it has to do with, I don't know, I think like when I was younger, a lot of people traveled more, were more apt to just kind of like go on all these random trips. And now a lot of the people that will come on my retreats, I get all ages, but a lot of them tend to be my age and not as many of them are traveling quite as much. But yeah, it all ebbs and flows. So I have faith that, everything just kind of goes with the flow. But yeah, I've done so many different retreats. I've done like nature retreats. I've done surf retreats. I have done deep ecology of wellness. I have done like a permaculture retreat, done like foodie retreats. But more recently, so a few years ago was the first time that I decided to create an annual retreat. And I think that was quite smart because now it's kind of like I'm building. And every year I'm just kind of create and hosting the same retreat in the same place with the same theme. So that creates a little bit more stability and people kind of know about it. And then it's a little bit easier for the marketing and for the curriculum that we can just build upon. Mm-hmm. And looking back, like for retreats, back in 2012, 13, when maybe I taught my first retreat. Yeah, I think like, I don't wish anything was different because I have no regrets. I feel like everything has just been amazing, but it is interesting to reflect back and the retreat people and businesses that kind of back then created kind of like a blueprint of something that they repeated over and over. They're kind of like the huge retreat company businesses now that now like do retreats in different locations and they kind of just have this blueprint. But that wasn't my path. But I just am more of a creative and I like to create new retreats all the time and new topics that interest me and the people that will come on them.
Yeah, I mean, I get drawn to the variety that all that you shared of like water retreats and foodie retreat and like those that sounds really cool to me. But I can also see benefits of, I guess, having more similar, same consistent curriculum that you can do it every year. And I'm just curious with this transition of, how you became to start a yoga trade and, this beautiful rhythmic life that you have now in Costa Rica as well as Lake Tahoe. How did you come to this rhythm of life now? Because it seems like you were traveling quite a bit all over the world teaching yoga. Did you always travel and teach yoga seasonally and always came back to your home? Or did you sometime would travel on and on for more than a half a year, more than a year to kind of keep traveling and keep teaching? So how did you kind of find this nice balance that you feel like it's like a right balance for you to be in Lake Tahoe for a certain time of the year and then go to Costa Rica for a certain time of the year? So I'm curious about how you found that rhythm that works for you.
Yeah, I did have like maybe a 2 to 3 year period where I traveled a lot, was constantly kind of all over the place. And it was very enriching and learned so much during that time. But then I also learned more about myself that I do maybe function a little better if I have some kind of home base and somewhat of a stability. And then through all those travels, I feel like I realized my two favorite places in the world were kind of home, Tahoe area, the Sierra Nevada, and Costa Rica. And they're complete opposites, but also quite similar. They're just two places that have huge nature, like really, like kind of extreme. They're both kind of like extreme places in different ways. Tahoe is very alpine, mountain, a lot of granite, a lot of water, a lot of pine. It's dry, cool. And then Costa Rica is just that moist, tropical, jungly. And yeah, so the other thing is the seasons, right? So when I was younger, the snow sports I was super into for a while. And I kind of naturally they started to wane a little bit for me. And so the winter here in Tahoe, which is like December till April, is also the high season in Costa Rica where I go. And yeah, so it kind of just naturally fit. I was like, wow, I can leave for winter. Also, it's easy to sublet, where I live. It's often quite easy to find someone that wants to rent the house that I live in for the winter because those people want to come and ski. So yeah, it kind of just naturally happened. And it always continues to shift, like because now it's starting to change a little bit as well for me. I've lived this amazing life and kind of been more or less 50-50% in Costa Rica and Tahoe over the past decade. And I still like love both of the places, but I'm feeling things are going to shift a little bit now again. I still feel like Tahoe is like number one home and Costa Rica is second home, but I feel like maybe the time spent in each place might start to shift a little bit. And I'm also feeling ready to maybe explore some new places again because it's been a long time since I've traveled to somewhere new, maybe before the pandemic, really. So I'm feeling like maybe creating like a little bit deeper roots here in Tahoe and maybe not traveling as much to Costa Rica and maybe exploring some new places.
I love that. I love to hear that there might be shift and transition soon. I guess I have this questions can become two for you. So I guess any tips for yoga teachers who are listening to this story and feel like, oh my God, like I want to travel and teach yoga all over the world like you did, Erica. So what kind of tips, advice would you give to a teacher who's looking to start that kind of a lifestyle, a journey of traveling abroad and teach yoga? Advices you can give to this kind of yoga teacher, as well as, not only the beautiful, gorgeous, fun part of traveling and teaching yoga, but there's also some, challenges that comes with that as well. So would you like to share any tips for that?
Sure, there's so many. I think that like for anyone out there that wants to do anything really, but especially if you want to go and teach around the world, whatever you prioritize in your life, I feel like you can do. And I feel like often people will say, "Oh, I want to like live that lifestyle that you live," and you can if you want to. I really do believe you can, and I think, like you said, on a realistic level, it takes some sacrifice, right? So I think I live an extremely rich life, and I'm so grateful and blessed, and very rich in experience. But I've also sacrificed a lot in my life too, which I think sometimes people that don't live this lifestyle can, overlook. But I don't have kids. I have yet to be married. I don't own a house. I didn't really go for it in my career and try to make tons of money. And so I don't know. I feel like I lived this really awesome, amazing, like wild and free and creative life that I love so much, but I've also kind of put some things to the wayside and sacrificed. So I think that everyone can live a super rich life. It just depends on what you want to prioritize. And sometimes it's hard to, have it all. I think so, you have to prioritize the way that you want to live, and you might have to make sacrifices in certain areas. So I think it's just really important to know really what you want and what you want to make a priority in your life. So that would be maybe step one. So yeah, just kind of really know yourself and know what you want to prioritize, and know that like what you can do it. Like whatever you really want to do, you can do it. And persistence, I think, pays off. I think don't give up. I think a lot of people give up too quickly or too easily on a lot of things. I don't think things come, sometimes you get lucky, but I think things take time, and you just got to plant those seeds and then really be persistent and consistent and devotional over time. And then as far as like teachers that really want to travel and teach nowadays around the world, I think there's so many opportunities. Like when I first started teaching and traveling, I didn't have an online job, but now, I mean, I feel like there's so many opportunities where you could at least work part-time online, and wouldn't even have to be yoga related. It could be, but just as long as you have some kind of online income stream that you could work part-time, then that would really supplement travel teaching lifestyle really nicely. Then you could travel so many places and teach yoga in exchange for room and board, and then maybe work part-time on your online job and then also get to teach yoga. That would be, I feel like if I was starting today, that's what I would probably start to do. Yeah, those are just several tips. I feel like I could keep going. So
No, I love that. Those are all so great. And yeah, you're right about there's so many online jobs out there now. So if you have even a part-time online job, a freelancing job online, and kind of pair that with teaching yoga while traveling, I feel like exactly what you said. It's a nice balance. And another question, well, first of all, thank you for sharing like what you said about the things that you also sacrifice to have this lifestyle. And that's such a good point, and also such a good, honest share, because from the outside, it might look everything is wonderful. But yeah, there is some things that you can't have if you're always traveling, For example, I remember I couldn't, visit my family as much, or I missed a lot of important birthday parties or weddings when I was traveling a lot. And there's just so much that you are gaining, and you are rich in one aspect, but it might, there's also things that you miss or you're not able to build or dedicate to because you're also traveling in different places or living abroad. So I really appreciate that, what you shared about that. I guess the second part of this question is, since you are a business owner and you started this yoga trade that has been, I feel like, a beautiful success, because almost every yoga teacher I meet knows about yoga trade, or they know now because I talk about it all the time on this podcast. And a lot of people do message me and ask me about yoga trade. So I think a lot of people do know about it. And so you are a business owner. So any tips as a business owner in this yoga world, whether it's yoga and wellness world? Because there was a shift that I had to make at one point, being a yoga teacher, that I wasn't just a yoga teacher, but I had to also think of myself as a business owner, because I didn't want to fully rely on working for somebody else only. And I realized that if I can think of myself as a business owner and create my own, even tiniest little business, that I can have my own income, that created a lot of freedom and independence for me. So anyway, so with that said, what are some tips you might have, advice that you have about being a business owner in this world, as well as, again, maybe challenges that you came across or you have overcome along the way?
Yeah, this is a good one. So I still feel like I'm learning a lot about being a business owner. Yeah, you have to be willing to constantly learn and constantly evolve, I think, to be a successful business owner over the years. Also, depending on how much your business grows, you have to be able to get out of your own way. I think that's one thing that I still struggle with is, getting out of your own way and letting kind of other people help you with your business and support you and help you grow. And wow, there's just so many things. I think mentorship is good. Having, some people to mentor you in business, it can go a long way. And just staying consistent, but also open to new possibilities. Yeah, and creating boundaries, I think, is a big one. That's another one I'm still like learning as we go. I think as business owners, it does create a lot of freedom and potential for creativity, which is why I love it so much. But then it's not necessarily like you work less than as if you had another job. Sometimes I definitely fantasize over the days when I just had a job that I just clocked in and clocked out. And then when I clocked out, I didn't think about work. And now it's kind of, the business is often always lurking there in my subconscious. And like, even, I'm kind of like working on it 24 hours a day. Sometimes I feel like in my subconscious. So being able to create boundaries for yourself as a business owner, I think is really important. So you can really turn off the brain maybe sometimes and just like not be at work all the time. Yeah, I don't know. I think collaboration is huge, really networking and collaborating with others who are inspirational to you. That goes a really long way and keeps you inspired, and also kind of allows you to keep leveling up and the vibes are high. And I don't know, and also just be open to all of it, the full spectrum, and that it's just like anything else, like riding the waves, the cycles of life. You're going to have ups and downs. And so as a business owner, if you're willing to persevere through the ups and downs, that's like pretty important, I think.
I love it. I think boundary work is such a difficult one that I'm also working with. I feel like I'm always learning and trying to get better, but sometimes I feel like I get better and then I step backwards.
Yeah.
And I completely resonate with what you said about like sometimes dream of just clocking in and clocking out so you don't have to think about your business 24/7. And there's no like, okay, it's 5 o'clock, I'm done working for the day. It's not like that when you have your business. There's like always something to be done, or there's always, I could always be working on something. It's never ending. So yeah, definitely, I completely relate with the boundary work and sometimes dreaming of clocking in and clocking out.
Yeah, I just like always try to remember that gratitude though,
Yeah.
it is yeah, grateful for the creative freedom more than anything else is so.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I guess I have two more questions for you. First one is, what does success mean to you as a yoga teacher, a business owner?
Success. So yeah, success can be defined in so many ways. As a yoga teacher, I guess I feel like success is, yeah, being open to feel the full spectrum of life, but being able to be at peace with it all and being able to practice self-compassion. And success, I feel like, is really when I'm able to really live my truth and express my truth. So that is something too that I feel like ebbs and flows, but yeah, I think success is when you're able to live in alignment with your true nature and be able to share that with the world.
I love that. That's so beautifully said. And I think you mentioned a little bit about you see some transition happening with, how you travel throughout the year. And yeah, I would like to know, where do you see your journey, your career, your life heading in the future? Both maybe you yourself, and also where do you see the yoga trade evolving in the future?
Yeah, well, I feel like I'll always have a very deep connection with this area, the Sierra Nevada, like Nevada City, Tahoe. That will always be, I feel like, a number one grounding home place. I don't know. I see myself traveling to some new places in the next 5 years. I haven't really traveled Europe. And so I feel like I see myself also, my heritage and my ancestors, a lot of them are from Europe. So I feel like that is a trip that I would like to do and just kind of connect more with my ancestry and things like that, which I'm excited to delve into some new travel. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm not exactly sure how it's going to look, but I feel like expression is going to be a really big thing for me in the next few years, being able to come into new and full expressions with new offerings, and it'll be underlying yoga, but might not be full blown yoga. So I feel like yoga is always a huge part of who I am, and I'll always love yoga, and nature is probably number one. And so kind of weaving teachings of nature and yoga and then coming into new expressions that I can offer personally. And then as far as yoga trade and its evolution, I feel like we are finally ready to delve in more into the world of online offerings and courses. And this, we need to collaborate and bring in people, teachers and guides and wellness professionals that want to share their gifts and teach courses to the yoga trade community. So that's kind of how I see it evolving. And then also, hopefully, one day getting more paid professional jobs on the site, because I know that's really what people want and desire. And I really do think that that is, a huge need out there. And maybe somehow being part of the movement that helps, yoga really become like a well-paid career. Because I know that there's so many, yoga teachers out there and so many people doing great work. And there really aren't a lot of like high paying, really great, stable jobs for yoga teachers out there. Unless you create your own business, I think is huge potential and opportunity for people that are go-getters that really want to do that within the yoga world. But I also think that there should just be more like community jobs, like local roots, community yoga, teaching career pathways that are paid well. And I'd love for Yoga Trade to be maybe part of that movement.
I love that. Thank you for saying that, because it's true. There just aren't a lot of well-paid yoga jobs out there, or it's not an easy career path to be on if you want to do this full time. So I completely agree with you. And yeah, hopefully the world will start changing in a way that they are going to be more career path for yoga teachers. So I agree with you.
Yeah, it's definitely happening. I mean, I have hope and faith, or I just know that it already is happening. But yeah, I mean, I think yoga is going to be ingrained in pretty much everything more and more. And there'll be more openings for like better paid pathways for that. But it's just like anything. I think it's kind of a lot of jobs and careers, and it's not always easy out there.
Yeah. Well, Erica, thank you so much for your time. I feel like you have started this amazing website, amazing business that has helped so many yoga teachers, and not only helped, but that probably have really changed a lot of teachers' lives and for the better. And yeah, there's just so much opportunities that yoga teachers can now easily look for and find and apply. And being able to travel and teach yoga wasn't something that was, possible, or maybe even people thought about as an option back then. And I think your website and your work has really made it even more possible. So I myself have gotten a job through Yoga Trade and lived in Peru for 4 months. And that was such an amazing experience, met so many amazing people, and also just speaking and interviewing so many teachers who have used Yoga Trade, both either teacher or retreat owners who use it to hire teachers. I think the impact you are making on this website is so vast. So thank you so much for all the amazing work that you do. And I really appreciate you taking time to chat with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really loved the conversation, and I look forward to learning more about you and connecting more with you and your work. And yeah, thank you for all the great and important work that you're doing out there.
Thank you. Is there anything you want to share with the listeners in terms of how they can find you, or any upcoming retreats or offering you want to share about? Let the listeners know, and I'll make sure to link it on the show notes.
Yeah, sure. So yogatrade.com is the best way to connect with Yoga Trade. You can go on there and explore opportunities, travel trade, gigs, and yoga and wellness jobs around the world and get inspired. There's a lot on there so yogatrade.com. And then we do offer a free monthly Yoga Trade Council, and that's the last Friday of every month. So the next one will, just the next Friday of the last Friday of every month. It is at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And so that's really nice to join, especially if you're new to Yoga Trade. It could be really helpful. And then in Costa Rica this year, I will be co-leading Gracias Agua. It's a water-inspired retreat in southern Costa Rica. It's February 10th to the 16th. And that is an amazing retreat where we explore all different pathways of water. It's a really fun retreat. And if you love water or curious about water, it's really amazing. And it's really from our heart and soul. So look into that as well.
Thank you so much. I'll make sure to link all of that on the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Have a beautiful day. And I hope to connect in person one day.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast episode, the interview I had with Erica. I think you were able to also feel Erica's this grounding, humble energy through the interview. She is so grounding, I guess, and she is a lover of nature, and I can really feel that as I was speaking to her. And she's so humble, like she started this amazing website, Yoga Trade. She's making an impact on hundreds and thousands of yoga teachers around the world. I definitely had a profound impact from my job in Peru this year that I went for 4 months, and I found that job through Yoga Trade. So imagine other yoga teachers just like me who's been teaching yoga abroad by finding a job on Yoga Trade. I've interviewed many teachers who's been traveling around the world teaching in different countries, different locations using Yoga Trade. So just knowing that so many people's lives has been impacted by this website, I think it's so amazing that she started this. Her and her partner started this, and what an amazing idea that she had, that I'm so happy she actually made that idea into reality. So if you haven't heard of Yoga Trade, you probably have by now. Go check out their website if you ever want to teach abroad, or even just want to, imagine and dream about teaching abroad. It's a great website to visit. I'm still a member of that website, and I visit that website every couple of weeks to check out what kind of jobs are out there. It just never gets old. So I highly recommend that website to any yoga teacher who just are interested or dream of teaching and traveling abroad. That is it for now. I do want to end with a quote from Judy Lassiter, who was my restorative yoga teacher. She's been teaching yoga for like 53 years or something like that. She is full of wisdoms. And she said that Shavasana is a gift that you can give yourself and to the world. So if you are one of those people who were also quite affected by the US election result, just know that resting or coming back to your mat to practice yoga, or just laying on your yoga mat to Shavasana and rest, is a gift that you can give yourself and to the world. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of laziness. We all need Shavasana. We all need yoga. We all need rest. Even if you can give yourself 5 minutes, 2 minutes of that, if you can be rested, and if your cup can be full from this practice of yoga or resting or Shavasana, then we can show up as the best version of ourselves to the people around you, to your loved ones, your communities, and hopefully everybody else around you. And yoga is not a magic pill that allows us to change the world. Yoga teaches us day in, day out that we can't control or change everyone's mind or action. Only thing we have control over is how we choose to show up for ourselves and others every single day. So can we show up to ourselves and each other as the best version of ourselves? And I think yoga can help with that. So that's it for now. As always, you can find me on Instagram at Rica Yoga, or you can message me on my website, www.reikayoga.com. It'll be on the show notes. And I would love it if you share this podcast with your friends, your coworkers, anybody you think might benefit or enjoy listening to this podcast. Another thing I would really appreciate you do is leave a rating. On Spotify, there's a place you can leave 5 stars. You don't even have to write a review if you don't want to. In other platforms, there might be a place to write a review or a rating. So any of that would be helpful, even just 5 stars. That's something super quick, takes you less than a minute. It's free and it'll help this podcast a lot. So besides that, rest. Make sure you give yourself rest so you can keep showing up as the best version of yourself. And be kind. Be kind to yourself and others. I hope you have a great rest of your day and speak to you next week. Bye.